take it you're ready now to get on to the next subject, I guess you can say, our next skills. We want to solve equation with variables on both sides, and we also have the distributive property, man, can't say it today, distributive property in there as well. So these problems are going to look worse than they did on Monday or earlier this week when you worked on these problems. So let's start looking at them now. Switch that color. So we're going to have to solve equations, and just like last time, I'm going to do some problems straight from your assignment. So let's solve each one of the equations I have here. I've got problems 1, 2, and 4. I also have 11 and 16, just so you are aware. Okay, so first thing we're going to do on these type of problems is we've got to deal with the distributive property. And the distributive property is this guy here. So the left-hand side, I'm not going to do anything with. I'm going to leave that as a negative 31 plus 3m. Now on the other side, I have to deal with the distributive property, which means I got to take this 4 into both of those. And notice it's a negative 4. So negative 4 times 1 is negative 4. And a negative 4 times a positive 6 is a negative 24. And then it has the m. Now, I don't have to do any more simplification in this problem because the m's are on opposite sides and the non-m's are on opposite sides. So now I want to combine, I want to start moving things around. And like I told you on last time, always try to move the variable that has a smaller number first. Negative 24 is actually further left than 3, so I'm going to move the 24m. And when I do that, I get a negative 31 plus 3 and 24 added together is 27m, and then that's going to equal negative 4. Now I can get rid of the 31 by doing the opposite. Since it's a negative number, I want to make a positive here so that those will actually cancel off. So a negative 31 and a positive 31 do cancel each other off. That leaves me with the 27m on the left and a negative 4 plus 31. Okay, they're opposite signs. Opposite sides, I'm going to go ahead and subtract the numbers to keep the sign of the bigger one. So 31 minus 4 would be 27, and I want to keep the sign of the 27, which is positive, or not of the 27, of the 31, which is positive. Now I can divide by the number with the m, because I want to break it down into getting the m by itself. So I get m as 1. Now, just like last time, I can plug it in and see if it works. I'm going to get a negative 31 plus 3 times 1, which is a negative 31 plus 3, which is a negative 28. And on the other side, I've got a negative 4 times the quantity of 1 plus 6 times 1. Well, 6 times 1 is 6. 1 plus 6 is 7. So I got a negative 4 times 7, which is a negative 28. Those are equal, so that is my answer. Okay, so that's problem number 1, the way I work it out. Let's take a look at problem number 2. Okay, on the left, there's nothing to do. On the right, I notice I have the distributive property sitting here, but I also notice that there's something else there. So after I do the distributive property, I'm going to have to do something more. On the left, I'm going to go ahead and bring down the problem. On the right, I'm going to do the distributive property first. So negative 5 times n is a negative 5n, and a negative 5 times a negative 2 is a positive 10, and then I have the plus 8n. Okay, so now when I look at this problem, I have terms on the right-hand side, the negative 5n and the 8n, that I should combine first. Well, 8n minus 5n would say I have 3n left, plus 10, and I got an 8n, and I've got the 30. Okay, so now we're back down to just having variables on both sides, and we're simplified on both sides. So now I want to move the smaller variable first. I'm going to minus the 3n from both sides. That gets me a 30 plus 5n equaling 10. And now I want to move the 30 because it's on the same side as the 5n, but it doesn't have an n, so I want to get rid of it. I want to reduce the problem amounts here. So I'm going to subtract 30 because that was a positive 30. So that way these two cancel off when I look at the positive and negative signs. And that gives me a 5n equals 10 minus 30. Okay, so they're opposite signs. So I go ahead and subtract smaller from the bigger, and then I keep the sign of the bigger number. So that would give me 30 minus 10 is 20, but the 30 is negative, so I get a negative 20. Then I can divide by the number with the variable. and that gets me n equals -4. So what's my next step? You're right, I need to check it. So I've got 30 plus 8 times -4 on the left. Well, that's -32. 30 plus -32 is a -2. So on the left, I get a -2. On the right, I have a -5 and a -4 minus 2 plus 8 times a -4. Okay, so -4 minus 2 is a -6 because they're both same sign. When I add the numbers, I keep the sign. -5 times -6 is a positive 30. 8 times -4 is a -32. 30 plus -2 is a -2. So those are both equal. So n equals 4. So we can always check our answers and know if we got the right answer. Okay, let's look at the last problem here. Number 4. That's on this page, I should say. Okay, so I have the distributive property again, and I have a term out there as well. So I'm going to have to deal with that term after I do the distributive property. So the first thing I do is I bring down the 5p. Now I'm going to take the -2 into both of these values. So -2 times p is a -2p, and a -2 times 2 is a -4. And I don't have to do anything on the right because there's no like terms there, so I don't have to do any combining or anything. So now I'm looking for like terms. I've got these two like terms on the left, which gives me 5p minus 2p is 3p minus 4. I get a -p minus 28. So now I want to get the variables all on one side. So I look for the smallest variable first, and to be this -p is actually a -1p. -1 is further left, so that's the one I want to get rid of. Since it's a negative, I'm going to add 1p to both sides. So now I have 4p minus 4 equals a -28. Well, my next step is this 4 I need to get rid of, and to get rid of it, I have to do the opposite of what's there. So it's minusing 4, so I'm going to add 4 to both sides. So that gets me 4p on the left, and a -28 plus 4. They're opposite signs, so I'm going to subtract. 28 minus 4 is 24, but I got to keep the sign of the 28, so it's got to be negative. And then I'm going to divide by 4. And if I do that, I get p equals a -6. And now, just like before, we're going to check to see if this works. So 5 times -6 minus 2 times -6 plus 2. 5 times -6 is a -30. -2 plus 6 is a -4. -2 times a -4 is a positive 8. So I've got a -30 plus 8, which gives me a -22. Okay, on the right, I've got the negative of a -6 minus 28. Well, negative of -6 is a positive 6 minus 28. Okay, they're opposite signs, so I'm going to subtract. 28 minus 6 is 22, but I keep the sign of the 28, so it's a negative. These are equal, so p equals -6. Okay, so we're going to have to do the distributive property at some point. We got to make sure we watch our negative signs, and then we might have to combine like terms. So let's look at problem number 11 now. Okay, -33 plus b equals 2b plus 6 times the quantity of 3b plus 4. So here's my distributive property part. I'm going to go ahead and take care of it first. That gets me an 18b plus 24. And I have the 2b, now the positive 18, and I got a -33 plus b. Okay, so I'm looking for my like terms. They're sitting right here. So that's 20b plus 24 equaling a -33 plus b. So now I want to move the smaller variable term. That would be the 1b here. So I'm going to do the opposite. Since it's a plus b, I'm going to subtract b from both sides. Really, I'm subtracting 1b from both sides. So that gets me a -33 equaling 20 minus 1 is 19. So 19b plus 24. And as we know at this point now, I'm trying to get the 19b term by itself so I can solve it. So I want to get rid of the 24. So I'm going to minus 24 from both sides. And that gets me a 19b. I got a -33 minus 24. Now, since they're both negative, I add the numbers and I keep the sign. I only change the sign, remember, if it's multiplication. So it's negative 57. So then I got to get negative 57 equal to 19b. So I'm going to divide by 19. And that gets me b on this side. And the negative 57 divided by 19, if I go to the calculator, it tells me negative 3. So then I want to make sure I check my solution. So I got a negative 33 plus a negative 3 gets me negative 36 on the left. And then I got 2 times negative 3 plus 6 times 3 times negative 3 plus 4. Okay, negative 3 times 3 is a negative 9 plus 4 would be a negative 5. So that's 6 times negative 5, and I got 2 times negative 3 over here. Can I add those? So I got a negative 6 there, and I get a negative 30 there. They're both negative numbers, so I'm going to go ahead and add the numbers. Gives me a 36 and keep their sign since they're both the same. And I get a negative 36. So B does equal a negative 3. Again, always check. Now, one last problem that I wanted to work for you guys. And I have a negative 1 minus 6 times the quantity 8p minus 2 equaling 11 minus 8p. Now, I have to do the distributive property first because it's multiplication, where there's negative 1 minus 6 out in front is subtraction. So I've got to do this part first. So I got a negative 1, and negative 6 times 8 is a negative 48p. And the negative 6 times a negative 2, negative times negative is positive. Positive 12 equals 11 minus 8p. So now I'm going to combine any like terms I have.
Doug, call 222, please. Doug G, call 222.
Sorry about that. So I've got these two like terms I need to combine. And see, a negative 1 plus 12 is a positive 11. Okay, so now I want to move the variable term first. So I want to add the 48p to both sides. Because that's a negative 48p, I want to add it to both sides. So that gets me 11 equals 11 plus 40p. And now I want to subtract 11. That gets me 0 equals 40p. Now, unlike some of those others where we had a number equaling 0, or I have a variable yet. So this is solvable. So I'm going to divide by 40 to both sides. So if I take nothing, I break it into 40 parts, I still have nothing for each part. So 0 is p. So now I want to check that. And I've got a negative 1 minus 6 times 8 times 0 minus 2. Well, that's a negative 1 minus 6 times 8 times 0 is 0 minus 2 would be negative 2. Negative 6 times negative 2 is a positive 12. So I get a negative 1 plus a positive 12 gives me a positive 11. On the other side, I have 11 minus 8 times 0. 8 times 0 is 0. So I get 11 minus 0, I get 11. And that's in a positive 11. So those are equal. So for problem number 16, I ended up with 0 equals p. Okay, so there you go. Some more solving. They are getting more difficult. Hope you realize that, but you're still capable of doing it. The only difference is we got to simplify it first before we start doing all the crazy moving and all that. You can do it.